Post recommendation, your running routine. Helpful for people like me who are interested in running on a regular basis and just getting started. That was a message I got the other day and I thought, sure, that's a great idea. I'll go ahead and just make an Instagram reel and share that for whatever it's worth. But then I realized I had a few more things to say on the topic that it could also just be a good idea for a YouTube video. So here we are. But in case you are new here, my name is Joe Baur. I'm an American who's been living in Germany for the past 8 years. Basically what I do on this channel is make trail running films, adventure films, travel, and occasionally you'll see me stuffing food in my face. If any of that interests you, you can find more videos on my channel from running around in Kenya to Southeast Asia, and of course, all around Europe. All right, now the question at hand, what is my running routine? I just want to share the obvious caveat up front that I'm not trying to coach you. I'm not a coach, I'm not certified. I'm merely sharing what works for me because somebody asked and perhaps it can work for this person or somebody else who might be watching. My running routine has evolved based on my goals. More or less for the past few years, I would say I've been running 4 to 5 times a week, probably closer to 5 times a week when I'm getting really close to my A races. And if you're pretty new to running, A races is basically what it sounds like. It would be the main race that you're training for way down the line. So for a lot of people recently, that was the Berlin Marathon, but maybe you would have done, I don't know, like a half marathon a month or 2 months before the race. That would be like a B race that you're using to help work up to that A race. Generally speaking, they say, experts, people you'll hear on social media, online, they say that you should do no more than like 2 A races a year. If you're thinking about road running, like marathon running, you would do maybe at most a spring marathon and like a fall marathon, but no more than that. But obviously now we're kind of seeing those boundaries pushed because people, like you think of like people like Courtney Dauwalter, wildly famous trail runner who will run these absurd ultra distances and take like a 2-week break and then be right back at it. So clearly we're kind of still exploring like what human bodies are capable of doing, but that's just kind of like the general rule of thumb. And if you're just getting started in running, obviously you're not going to be thinking about doing multiple ultras within like a month or 2 month time frame. You just want to start getting out and getting moving. For me, 5 days a week actually started to feel like a lot. I remember back in May when I was in Spain and changed how many days a week I want to run from 5 down to 4, just because I wanted to try other things and just feel a little bit more freed up and not be thinking about running constantly. Because if you've seen any of my videos or things on social media, I'm in dire need of different hobbies. That said, I do love running, but I wanted to kind of dial it back a bit. I went to 5 days a week, I think in the training last year leading up to my first ultra marathon. So I've talked about this in another video. I made a video about finishing my first ultra marathon. You can go check that out on my channel. And I worked with Ultra Trail Coaching. I signed up with them because my wife works with a coach, like a lot of people work with a coach, somebody who's going to make them a plan catered precisely to her needs. I don't think she'll get a plan like more than like a week in advance because her coach is constantly changing things based on how she did other workouts and how she's feeling. They write notes back to each other, and I think they do like one call, I don't know if it's one call a year or one call every 6 months, basically before like a big race. So before the Berlin Marathon, which was her A race, she had a call with her coach and they talked things over. I was fine doing something a little bit more hands-off, so that's why I went with Ultra Trail Coaching, because I just wanted something to give me some guidance to get over that finish line for my first ultra marathon after I had gotten injured in the lead up to my first attempt at an ultra marathon and had a DNF because I had some runner's knee, it acted up, and I had to take myself out of the race after doing like 26 of the 50 some kilometers. And honestly, I know myself, I know I could have just, recovered, got back in the training, and eventually got over that ultra marathon finish line on my own. But I like the idea of like having some kind of logic to what I was doing, and Ultra Trail Coaching uses a mixture of like algorithms that look at your running history to develop future plans. And there is a personal touch, like you can write messages into the coaches and say, oh, I don't really understand this, or I've got this going on, and kind of cater it a little bit to you, but it is a lot more hands-off compared to, somebody like my wife who hired a coach who she's working with one-on-one a lot of the time. So last year, like I said, I just really wanted to finish my first ultra marathon, so I was willing to do as much as I reasonably could in my schedule, and so that was running 5 days a week, and I would do strength training twice a week for upper body. So basically, Monday and Thursday, I would always go to the gym and do a push-pull routine, and that's basically just exercises where you're doing push movements and doing pull movements. A lot of people who are more focused on only strength training and not doing so much in the whole running world, they'll usually split this up to like Monday might be a push, Tuesday might be a pull, Wednesday will be legs, and then they'll go back and repeat. Because I'm kind of all over the place with, wanting to maintain strength training, but also do endurance sports, I'll just throw in my push and pull routine together, do that Monday, Thursday, and then the rest of the days would be dedicated to running. And so after I finished my ultra marathon, I kind of continued with that for a bit, but like I said, in May, I was like, I want to change it up a bit. Went down to 4 just to give myself more flexibility to, just feel the freedom. If like somebody's like, hey, you want to go do this other activity that isn't necessarily running, I could do that without looking at my schedule and like feeling guilty about it. Plus with ultra marathons, like I'm not trying to win the race. I just enjoy the races, the challenge, pushing myself, and, crossing the finish line. I'm not like looking for an amazing time. So for me, it's all more about staying fit and like I can do these physical challenges. That said, this past Berlin Marathon, I did PR again for the, second time in a row. It was my third Berlin Marathon, and got my time down to 3:19. And it just feels like it's super kind of close to being able to run a sub 3. And I need to figure out why I would actually want to run a sub 3. Is it just purely ego, or is it I just want to see if I can? I don't know the reason yet, but I do kind of feel that itch to push for a sub 3. And it also kind of feels in reach because to drop to a sub 3 would be a similar drop in my PR that I've seen the past couple of races. I know it's not necessarily, apples to apples in terms of you can drop this much each time. Eventually, you do plateau a little bit, or to make more gains takes a lot more work. So I don't know, I'm actually excited to get back out today after I record this video. I've got to work out, and I'm gonna start pushing my pace more to see if I can hit that pace that I would need to hit to run a sub 3 marathon. That said, my next race is a trail race, and so I also need to think about elevation. So this is something that I've been playing with, and why I went to Ultra Trail Coaching last year, because they do prescribe a certain amount of meters that they recommend you climb per 10 kilometers based on the race that you've signed up for. And so I liked having some guidance on how much elevation I should be working with in my workouts. I've spoken with some other people that work with different running programs, and those running programs will say, oh, if you're prescribing a number of meters to climb for a workout, you're kind of making it up, and it doesn't necessarily correlate to your workout. I honestly don't think there's a whole lot of research on this at the moment, but anecdotally, you do see like the people who do really well at trail running tend to surround themselves with a lot of elevation. You do hear of some people coming out of like the Midwest in the US who are able to defy the flatland stereotype and succeed at trail running. But for the most part, you do see those athletes hitting trails with some elevation. So that's something I wanted to keep in mind. Moving forward though, I'd like to find a balance of having one workout where, yeah, I'm climbing and I'm getting that elevation under my legs, but I'm also dedicating time to speed work, because so far it's been kind of one or the other. And just trying to keep the topic in mind of why I'm making this video, what does my running routine look like? I've already said that I would run 4 to 5 times a week. Whether I was running 4 to 5 times a week, I would usually have minimum 1, maximum 2 workout runs per week. Generally speaking, they say about 80% of your runs should be really easy, like zone 2 easy. And I don't want to get into the weeds into like what is zone 2 exactly, what does that look like, but just really easy. Like you should be able to have a full easy conversation while you're running. And just to put that in perspective, my marathon pace in this last race a couple weeks ago was 1 kilometer every 4 minutes and 44 seconds. And my easy pace, when I'm just going out there, I can have a full conversation while running, is the fastest would be about 6 minute kilometer. up to maybe 6.5. So you can see that kind of discrepancy there about how easy it should be, and that should be 80% of your run. So if you're new to running and you're thinking about what my routine looks like that allows me to do these different physical challenges, that's something that's very important to keep in mind, because up until, honestly, probably about 2 years ago, when I first started working with ultra trail coaching, I basically went out on every run, not as hard as I could go, but like pretty hard. Like I was the stereotype looking at my Strava stats thinking like, oh, I want to get that average pace down, because it's the whole stupid social media thing where you're like, oh, people see this and, I don't want people to think I'm slow, and now I don't care. And I actually did have somebody before the Berlin Marathon say like, oh, I saw your times like 6 minutes, something like you've been taking it pretty slow. And the results speak for themselves. I didn't expect to be able to run 3:19, and I did. So that's something I think is really important to keep in mind, is that if you're just starting off, almost all of your runs should be really easy. If you want like specific advice, definitely work with a coach. But I would say probably maximum at first, you're only going to do one workout run per week as you're kind of getting used to it. And then once you have more experience, you'll build up to be able to do 2 workout runs a week. And what a workout run looks like can be very different depending on what program you're doing, what coach you're working with. I know like my wife will do, say like 4 reps at a specific pace for a specific amount of time, whereas mine is a little bit, it's definitely more geared towards trail runners. So I don't think they worry about splits so much. But today, for example, I think I have to run for like 35 minutes at a steady, hard pace. And that includes like a 10-minute warm up beforehand, 5-minute cool down after the workout, and then another 10-minute cool down to like getting my back to resting heart rate. So it can vary drastically depending on what you're doing, but generally speaking, lots of easy runs to start. You're warming up, you're doing a very easy run, maybe 20, 30 minutes. If you're just getting started, you're able to have a conversation, and working up to being able to include some workout runs to, elevate your heart rate a bit more and start building some speed. Now, before I wrap this up, the last thing I'll say, and I touched on a little bit before, is that I do dedicate time to strength training, and that's something I would definitely recommend to anybody who's just getting started in running, both for your entire body. So I do dedicate Monday and Thursday to upper body because I just like to be in the habit of going to the gym. It seems silly when you think about what weight training is. You're taking a heavy weight, moving it in a specific direction several times, and then gently putting it back where you found it. Sometimes gently. Of course, there's always those people at the gym who really like to hear themselves grunt. I don't understand that. At most I'll let out just like a little growl, for lack of a better term, every now and again when I'm really pushing hard. But I've never felt the need to just get this beastie growl grunt out of me while lifting weight. That's something I'll never understand. But I do think, dedicating a couple of days a week that you do strength training for parts of your body that are maybe not seeing as much action through running. That said, I am still doing lower body strength training because of time, schedule, life, and all that stuff. I don't necessarily go to the gym to do that because on, the other days of the week, I'm most likely going to be running and, to do an hour-long workout, sometimes longer, especially as you're really building up to marathons and ultra marathons when you might have to do an hour and a half, 2-hour run on a weekday. I don't have time to then also go to the gym and do lower body strength training. So usually what I'll do, and what I'll probably do today, honestly, is that I've got an hour-long workout running, and I'll come home and maybe cool down a little bit, and I'll do a body weight workout for my lower body, and that might be like some Bulgarian squats. Maybe I'll do some plyometrics, calf raises. There's a lot of stuff that you can do just from the comfort of your home, and you can buy stuff. I have a little, kettlebell where you could change the weight on there, and I use that a lot for my at-home workouts for my lower body after I go on a run. So that's something that I think you should keep in mind as well. So just to wrap this up, another reminder, I am not a coach, just sharing what works for me. It might work for you if you're new to running. I would definitely consult a coach if that's something you're interested in. They're gonna know a lot more than I do, but what has worked for me and what I would I guess if I could go back in time and talk to a more inexperienced version of myself, I would keep the whole 80% of your runs should be easy thing in mind. I would definitely say keep 80% of your runs easy, and that is something that was echoed when we were at the running camp in Kenya. Pole, they said, keep it slow for a majority of your runs, like even at times uncomfortably slow as you kind of adjust to getting your body used to running in this very, very slow state before you push it. And then one workout a week, working up to possibly 2 workouts a week where you're, depending on your goal for trail running, maybe you're doing some hill repeats or climbing some big elevation, or you're on a track trying to build speed. So keep that in mind. Keep things like strength training, mobility, stretching, all that stuff. Keep that in mind. It's all part of the whole package if you want to get into running and be able to stick with it for a long time. And I do think it's worth it. You see on social media, myself included, people making jokes about how running, like, why do we do this? I've had the same thought when I was in North Macedonia with boiling temperatures and I had an ultra marathon ahead of me, and I was just like, why? Why is this a thing I do for fun? And I still don't know if I can put it into a romantic prose per se, but in my gut, I know why I do it. I love the physical challenge, and whether it's trail running or road running, both have their pros in terms of what you can get out of the sports. For me, like the Berlin Marathon for road runners, like there's no experience in this crazy, beautiful planet of ours like finishing the Berlin Marathon, being surrounded by all those people who just did the same impressive thing that you did. But the same thing for trail running. I finished lots of races with friends. I've traveled with friends to different trail races, and to just cross that finish line, cheer each other on, have a beer at the end, there's no better feeling. So if you think you might have the runner's itch, I definitely say to go for it. I hope that answers the question. If there's anything else, please leave a comment. Otherwise, in the meantime, I'm gonna get back to work editing my next film, which is gonna be about how the Berlin Wall became a trail. You're gonna see me running, paddling, and cycling along this trail. I can't wait to share the film, but you're gonna have to be patient. In the meantime, go watch this film where I ran an FKT marathon around the Berlin Ringbahn and told the story of how this train's history mirrors that of Berlin and German history. So you can run and learn something.